Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Mindful Constitution podcast. As always, thank you for spending your time with me and with us. I'm really super excited today to talk with Dr. Cassie Wuthrich. She's a practitioner, owner of Grit Natural Medicine.
Natural medicine.
Yes. And we're chatting today. She's actually someone I've followed on Instagram for quite a while, even before I had the podcast. And her approach really resonates with me in terms of our self healing capacity and just really taking full ownership of our health and the unfolding of our healing. And so we'll dig in and I'll let her share her wisdom with you all and just soak it all in because she's awesome. And so, hi, Cassie.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. How are you doing today to start?
Fantastic. It's been a really beautiful few days here in San Diego. So we've got the sun, and anytime the sun's here, energy just matches that. So it's been really good.
Oh, nice. Actually, I don't think I even knew. Are you in San Diego all the time or are you just there right now?
Yes. Yeah, so I'm originally from Texas, but I transplanted to San Diego in the little beach towns around here, and I've been living here since 2014, actually.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I didn't know that, but I was born in San Diego.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in La Mesa, California.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, my family moved when I was 12, but I'm
Okay.
originally from there, so.
Yeah. Do you miss it?
I feel like I adapted to the mass hole, you know?
Okay.
I
Yeah.
like the weather and I haven't been back to visit in so long, but it's funny. I feel like I finally turned over like 25 years later, whatever. But I'm 37. We moved when I was 12, so I remember though when we did move, I was like devastated that there wasn't good Mexican food on the
Yeah.
East Coast. I'm like, no, they don't have
That's a
rolled
big deal.
tacos.
People don't know. That's a huge deal. That's always in the factoring too. I came from West Texas, so we had like really good, authentic Mexican food as well. And
Yeah.
so that was a really good perk to this area. I was like, okay, that
No.
translates well enough. I can survive here. So
Yes, exactly. I know. 12-year-old me was very sad,
yeah,
very
I can only
sad.
imagine. I can only imagine.
So, oh, yes. Well, I have a bunch of questions, but as we talked about, we're just going to let it unfold naturally. Go from just starting at the question I always just love opening up with is kind of sharing a little bit of your journey, how you ended up here, how you ended up with the work you're doing now, what led you to the field of healing and medicine.
So I originally grew up on a farm and I thought I was going to be a vet. So I was going to be the animal doctor and had my heart set on that. And that was the plan and the vision and the passion. And then it was in my senior year of high school, I went and shadowed the vet at the local biggest town, which was still tiny, tiny town, Texas. And I spent a day there and it was just not what I had thought. And it was a lot of like, it probably seems too vivid, but like animals ending up in bags and just brutal surgeries back to back to back. And like, not, I had no concept that any other vet clinic could potentially be different. So,
Hmm.
in retrospect, the one I went to was quite rough, West Texas, led by a man and worked just like exactly that. So, it just kind of traumatized me. And then I was like, if that's what it is, like, I would rather have a lot of pets and rescue and never see that ever again.
Yeah.
And so then that day, I remember going home after career day, telling my mom, be like, I don't think I want to be a vet. And like super traumatized from the day. And then I had told my career teacher the same thing, like career day did not go how I had planned, and that I actually was changing all of my plans. And it was very like alarming because it was my senior year and I was like the planned one. Like everything was structured and planned, and I knew where I was going to go since like kindergarten. And so this was like tapping on the brakes, which would be like something that my future was going to really force me to do. So it was like the first tiptoe into getting uncomfortable with my plans not going according to my plan
Yeah.
in a very fun way. And then my career teacher was like, well, I think maybe you just need to look at humans instead of animals. And it'd be cleaner, it'd be kinder, it'd be all of these things. And I'm like, say less, say less. I can still, and like my brain just went into complete practicality, like analytical, like, okay, all of this is going to cross over. All of my high school credits are going to, okay, yeah, no, we're good. We're good. We're going to go forward, full speed, humans. And so then I did that. But then during college, I actually, because I was just hook, line, sinker for just whatever people said they meant, and I respected medicine. I really didn't know there's another world of medicine, that there was medicine and that was it.
Yeah.
And um, I got vaccinated in college just because it was routine, and my gynecologist told me that that's what everyone was doing, and
Was it the HPV?
yeah, I literally had no questions for it.
I feel like I got a little forced into that one when I was
Yeah.
going to family
Yep.
planning, sort of like,
Yep.
sort of told I was gonna get it, and I was like, okay.
Well, and it was so like if I had like the mind and the questioning and the sovereignty and the authority that I have in myself now, like going back to her being like, but it doesn't even make any sense because even the target audience, I don't fall into that criteria. But again, that version of me, she was very
Trusting
authority
of the.
knows, trusting of the system, and what they say is what they say, and they mean well. Why else would they be doctors and in a hospital if they didn't mean well, right? And so there was really, it was like my critical thinking, not that it wasn't there, but I didn't employ it in situations where there was authority because I had been raised, um, like a lot of people, to be good, to follow the rules, to never be bad, to never do anything bad, to achieve, to achieve, to achieve. So I was programmed in that way. And part of that programming was you don't go up against authority,
Especially doctors.
especially doctors, and the authority that seems educated, the authority that seems. So it was very much, it was Trojan horsed into this whole mechanism with which I, traverse my life.
Mm.
And when after that series happened, my health declined. I went from being super athletic, lots of energy, to just like overnight decline. Uh, Muscles started twitching, verbal changes, visual changes, energy changes, brain changes, and I like had no idea. I never even thought to question it again. I just started questioning me immediately, like the problem had to have been me. And so then I go to another doctor and they don't have answers. And then I go to the next one. And then eventually I get diagnosed with autoimmune conditions, incurable things that have no treatment. And it was just very rapid fire after that. Just kind of really getting pushed from being a healthy 20-year-old to somebody with chronic, lifelong conditions that were irreversible, and that I was just going to progressively get worse over time. And it was such a drastic change in my life that my brain didn't even have a formula to follow it all. And so, because of that massive amount of discomfort, fear, I was on my path for medical school, the traditional allopathic. And then I was just literally, because of everything I was going through and how tired I was and scared I was and everything that was happening at that time in my life, I was available for other information. And I feel like that's the kicker for most people. Unfortunately, this is part of our programming, especially if you're still in the generations that have been taught and trained to be good and nice and play by the rules and follow the rules and listen to authority. And this is part of the unbecoming that we have to go through, is we're almost pushed into these critical moments, these crises in our life, to where it forces us to be available for information that we would not be available for otherwise. Because I look back and be like, oh, I wish I could have been this version of me back then. I'm like, you wouldn't have listened to you back then, sweetheart.
Yeah. It's
No
so
offense.
crazy how your
But
level.
my younger version of me would have had no interest in the
Yeah.
version of me that I am in now, aside from like if she could know all the really cool stuff, right?
Yeah.
But like just if she was just going by surface judgments, that version of me, I would have listened to the white coat, white haired glasses 10 times more than I ever would have listened to even this version of who I am today. So that's the truth of it. And that's the ownership that we have to take because you could play that story so many different ways and I'm the victim, right? But then if you go down to the bare bones of it, she was a hard-headed, set in her ways, north was north, south was south. This is what it is, and there's nothing else. And I'm going to go and I'm going to achieve and I'm going to do what's in the books and what they say to me. And I'm not going to question anything, right? And so that's what had to be shaken out of my tissues more than even the adjuvants and everything that happened and everything that accumulated because of what was put into my body without me even knowing. So I look back and I'm like, would I want to go back and experience all of that? Absolutely not. But then I also look back and be like, could you have become you any other way?
Yeah.
Really? Could you have? If your intellect wasn't threatened, if your skin didn't start changing, if your muscles, if all of that wasn't threatened with your level of hard-headedness, which is now I have adopted as part of my strength and my gift, right?
Mm.
But back then it was working against me because, again, something else was running the mechanism of my intellect and overriding it. Intuition never really had a place to say,
Yeah.
hey, pause, wait. And so when I look back, I'm like, okay, I mean, I would have liked to go about that story differently, but we are where we are. It happened exactly how it had to happen if I look at my personality.
Yeah.
What else would have captured my attention? What else would have pulled me from my straight and narrow path that was so predictable, so cushy? All I had to do was do what I had always done, which is just achieve, make the grades. I knew how to do that perfectly, effortlessly, right? I can do that. And then the outcome was what? Financial security, job security. Like everything was perfect in the town that my
Prestige.
whole family was there. Like everything was perfect. So, what would have been required for a personality like mine to rip me out of the illusion that I was just bouncing through?
Oh my
Aside from
God.
having to go through everything that I had to go through. And so, like back then, I would have been like, bullshit, there's another way. I like a book, maybe. But if you
Yeah.
go back to my personality, you wouldn't
It's
have picked up the book, sweetheart.
I know, it's so funny. Oh my God, like so many things are standing out to me, just like how deep the programming runs that trains us to go against common sense, critical thinking, our own intuition. And it's like, I feel like once you start to see it, not just in the medical system, it starts bleeding through all the systems, and you're like, ah, like you have the moment where like,
Everywhere.
oh my God, everything is like meant to take us away from our truth, and this is fucking crazy. How does not everyone see it? And that like it's so funny too because I haven't ever really shared this on the podcast, but my mom never got me vaccinated at all when growing up. My dad was very holistic, and this was before it became this huge political thing, like,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's funny because they were very like left, and crunchy, and not like super political, but I guess like they probably would have identified as being left or Democrats. But my parents just they didn't they believed in like fostering health in alternative ways. My dad had skepticism about the pharmaceutical industry in the 80s when I was born. Like, he was trained as a holistic chiropractor, so I never had any. And then I always remember growing up, even with that as my like background, thinking because I had it, I didn't really think much of it until I started getting older. And I'm like, why did my parents do that? Because I started getting exposed to like mainstream programming. And then when I was in the office and the nurse was telling me all these like stats about HPV and blah, 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 I just kind of like it's
Yeah.
weird. I just handed over my authority, and now looking back, I'm so, grateful for my parents having been people who were willing to like make choices outside of the box. And I do think that that early exposure to alternative choices is what eventually led me to like make my own decisions during, the pandemic and be like, wait a second, is this making sense? I'm just looking at it, objectively, not as a political thing, but it doesn't seem like this is lining up here. And that was sort of aligned with me not drinking, and kind of like what you said about, sometimes we look back and we're like, why did we make the decisions we make? Or why did things have to happen this way? And for me, I drank so excessively and I was so checked out of my life for so long. And when I decided to take out alcohol, I did, realize like this kind of I needed to get, reminds me of like a rock bottom, similarly, yours was like those health issues where it's like we won't really accept new ways of viewing reality or new belief systems or potentials for ourselves until we're forced to. Like old me would have been like, sobriety's lame, and like my mom and dad were like weirdos. And then as I started to like be forced due to my own rock bottom to explore new ways of living, it opened my eyes, and I started seeing even drinking culture and the programming around that, like, not that everyone should be sober, but the normalized ways of being around alcohol. I was just like, this is questionable. And then it happened during COVID, and I was like, and this is questionable, and this is questionable. It just like kind of expands your horizon into this giant awakening process of recognizing, like, who am I within these systems, and what programming am I just subscribing to without zero thought? Meanwhile, my health is deteriorating. I'm having fun, but I'm not having fun. And it's just like we just tell ourselves these things on autopilot and put blind faith in systems and authority figures without any deeper questioning. And then when you really dig into the systems, you're like, we should most definitely be questioning these things at the very least. They're benefiting from us not being connected to our intuition. They're benefiting from our health deteriorating. They're benefiting from us being asleep, And so it's like the fact that we're trained to just automatically trust them is pretty wild.
Well, and we have to kind of, again, take another little angle of the perspective, because again, that makes us very, it seems like we're weak, but when you see it differently, they're very aware of the most powerful mechanisms within us. So the issue is that we are not the ones in charge of those when we are outsourcing, when we're trusting, when we are in that autopilot. So it's never that you become less powerful, it's just who is in control of the power that you hold. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the switch. But in order to switch, what does that look like in a life? That looks like getting massively uncomfortable and taking full responsibility of everything. And, the echo and the heartbeat that was, within my pulse from that moment of realizing that something wasn't right, right? And that word skepticism. I think skepticism is one of our most powerful things, especially, trying to seek the truth and find the truth and live the most fulfilling, vibrant, truthful life, right? Skepticism is essential because in order to be skeptical, you have to be able to think on your own, and you also have to be willing and available to have whatever is shown to you become true. If you don't want the outcome to be different, you don't want to be skeptical.
Yeah.
You're going to shut down that mechanism within you because that's threatening, and that's going to be very uncomfortable. So it's like this whole thing of like you get confronted by realizing that, the second you want to take over the power, right? Change the narrative, change the paradigm, change the perspectives from which you're looking, which then are influencing, once you start understanding psychology and emotions and that whole system, you realize that, the mind and the emotions, it's a prediction mechanism. So then you're going to have to reach all the way back to change everything. So not only is your whole world shifting, but even the method through which you were navigating life, is your compass is going to be off. It's like somebody had a little magnet on the side of the compass and north wasn't north. It was like north going a little bit east. And then
Yeah.
you flick that magnet off, it's not just a casual thing. When your north then becomes north and you realize that you are navigating off of, a skewed direction, that's drastic, right? That's a very drastic to not only the psyche, but then the emotions that were governed by that psyche. So again, your emotions were based off of experiences, based off of that mind. And when you're changing the mind, you're also saying, okay, all of my emotional predictions, we're going to have to rewrite.
Yeah.
Because the thing that a lot of people start encountering is they no longer apply, right?
Yeah.
Once you start changing your mind, it's like that's why everyone feels so uncomfortable in their bodies because then we're producing emotions and we don't understand why our emotions aren't making sense to what we now know in our mind. Well, you have to have a lived experience neurologically to now have that foundation, that blueprint to even inform a new prediction model, right? The
Mhm.
prediction model is what informs your emotional responses. So it's actually so much more work than what we make it seem like of like, oh, just changing your mind. Oh, just accepting something true. Oh, it's not a little thing when you understand how much all of your physiology is ran off of these very foundational fundamental things. So it's such a huge undertaking, and that's why it's also so shocking to the system. And everyone's going to reach for we can say their drug of choice or their medicine or their adaptation of choice, right? And it's always interesting to me because when I first got into this work, um, we looked at certain things and we looped them into these categories of addiction, right? You could find alcohol in there, you could find sugar in there, you could find sex and porn and now social media. But then when I looked for truth, because again, the underpinning of everything I started doing was make it make sense.
Mhm.
Because this doesn't make sense to say that, a person that is chronically utilizing the input of alcohol, if we simplify it down and take all of the extra baggage off of it, that is worse than the person that's doing something else, right?
Mhm.
But when you look at it as just a physiological mechanism, you then get to understand exactly what's hurting in them or what's missing in them by what they're reaching for the most, right? And so then you're like, of course, like one is they make it really accessible to reach for something like alcohol or porn or social media or so it's very interesting to see what society puts on the buffet, right?
Mhm.
And so when you understand all of it, it's like, oh my gosh, even just wanting to change your mind or even just attempting to be skeptical is a quantum leap. If you look at everything that's going to, because you're at some point, even just admitting that you've been doing things in a way that's not for your best outcome, your best experience of life, that's already creating what? You're losing your illusions of safety. And everyone's like, well, they're illusions. Hey, it doesn't matter, right?
Whatever you accept as your reality doesn't matter if it's an
That's
illusion or
where they were
not.
deriving comfort, thinking that the
Yeah.
medical establishment was for them and that the medical establishment was going to be what kept their tissues healthy and kept disease away from them and could cut out a tumor and save their life is the extreme of where we take that. And to start tippy toeing into, okay, but what if can a person with perfect labs still die? We don't want to ask those questions because it's going to start poking holes in these illusions that do give us some semblance of comfort. And so
Yeah.
this is the mechanism at play of we are going to be massively uncomfortable, but I want you to get uncomfortable in a direction that changes your life because discomfort isn't our enemy, right?
Mhm.
It's how can we walk with our discomfort and then just like you're saying, even with your experience of no longer relying on the input, simplify it down. It's not an addiction. It's not a personality, flaw. You are relying on an input. Why do people rely on certain inputs? Because they have a predictable and a very trustworthy output.
No.
So if you're looking at alcohol, alcohol is going to do what alcohol does. And that's why a lot of people like it. Why? Because you can trust that it's going to get you to that output. A
Mhm.
grape, seems a little bit further away from the output that you desire, right? You have to use a little bit more of your intellect to be like, hey, this eventually is going to create this change in my inflammation, this in my immune system. It's too much work. It's too
Yeah.
much work to put your
Alcohol
finger.
is quite immediate.
Yeah. But you can also use any type of input to go and identify truth, right? Everything has an input. You also are part of the conversation. And depending on how you want to experience your life, like don't make it good or bad. Just is this where you want to be in your life? Is this how you want to feel? And do you feel good with who you are giving your power to? Does that feel good to you? And most people, especially if they're going to listen to something like this, are not, right? They got to a point where this is so uncomfortable, even in my seeking of comfort. Something's not right. I'm confused. I've worked my butt off and I'm not getting the results that I was promised that I would get.
Well, it's really interesting too, working with clients around their programming with alcohol and conditioning, because it is like we have so many belief systems and they aren't leading to promised outcomes. Even the security of like believing in, the medical establishment or believing in the government or believing in it's like I think the reason why a lot of people like there is such high levels of anxiety and just disconnection, and I just think a lot of it has to do with subscribing to systems that inherently aren't like leading us to fulfillment, but we're still, it's like that loop of continuing to subject ourselves to these systems that aren't
Well, because
providing the output we want, but we're like trained to believe that they will.
you're trained to just grab something else off the assembly line.
Yeah.
Where the action needs to start being, instead of reaching for the next thing, instead of not reaching for the pill, we're going to reach for the supplements. We've got to stop that mechanism in the
Mhm.
tracks. And we have got to be more reliable as ourselves, more trustworthy as ourselves than, say, a shot of tequila, a glass of wine. We have got to govern our physiology in such a way that it not only restores our faith and our trust in ourselves, because you've got to live it in a way where it's so practical for your nervous system, because once you've lived that way, it's really hard to sell you on anything. So you can
Yeah.
get confused and distracted in the jargon and the language of systems, and people are like, I don't even know what that means anymore. I don't even. So simplify it all the way down. Just quit reaching for somebody outside of you to give you something that you can provide yourself. And we've got to put that truth all the way down to even our physical bodies, because we're reaching for things that we produce, right? And when you're relying on the things to produce it, you always are going to need something. And if they take that one thing, you're going to need to replace it with the next best thing. So that's why pills are getting replaced by supplements, are getting back replaced by peptides that are funneling back to the same industry that's produced. Like it's just a sleight of hand until you quit the knee-jerk reaction of putting your hand out to grab it, right?
Yeah.
And that's the pause that we have to have, of like, they just want you to keep grabbing, but you
Yeah.
don't need to. And when you stop the system, you don't even have to, because like when you're trying to get there through thinking, even the conversation is confusing. You've got to get there through an action. So what would an action be in this scenario? Whatever's not working, start having skepticism towards it. It's not saying stop it cold turkey, but start paying attention to something isn't matching. Because just take the human body, it matches when it matches. What do I mean by that? So when I would have patients come and we would utilize a lot of like sunlight and natural lifestyle factors, and say I had somebody come and say that they were doing really well on the progression of sunlight exposure, we were to the like last part of where they were really maxing out what their skin could handle in terms of light exposure, but they were pale. So it was then my responsibility to say something doesn't make sense then. Either we've got some pigmentation alterations that are not expressing themselves in you, because you're not producing a tan that would correlate to that level of sun exposure. So the skepticism in me is not angry, it's not judgmental, it's just being like, this doesn't make sense, I'm sorry. And
Yeah.
to ask the question, right? And then after that question is asked, then you're going to get more useful information, right? But we've got to start doing this with ourselves. Like, if this worked, it would work. If it's not working, we've got to start saying something doesn't make sense. And the kicker when it comes to your health and your wellness and your vitality and your peace of mind is you don't have to go figure out all the answers. The mechanism at work is very much for you. It's very simple, even though we can make it so freaking complex.
Mm-hmm.
And what it is the body has certain things that it needs. And when it's given those things, it thrives. It doesn't need to be broken down into all these tiny, confusing little things, supplements and constituents, and this peptide and not this peptide, and this nutrient and not this nutrient. And that's when we think that we know enough. And the more you realize, the more you learn, right? It's very true. The more you learn, the more you realize we don't know anything, because you don't just have like just zinc. And it's not just zinc sulfate and zinc. No, there are so much, it's so much more complex than you could ever imagine just when you say zinc. The body already communicates, understands, utilizes, interprets, translates, detoxes, everything that you don't even have words for. So we've got to put ourselves back in our place in a very humble way. Because, like, to me, it's not like I've got to go, put her in her place.
Yeah.
In reference to the infinite, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want to call it, whatever is animating all of this, that's what I'm saying. You being put in your place is actually you aligning yourself with the most powerful thing in the world. It's
Mm-hmm.
not saying you're this lesser thing. No, it's just acknowledging that so much more is at work in you than you could ever intellectually understand. And
Yeah.
everything
So,
that you don't understand is actually probably almost certainly working in your favor. And so if you could simplify it down and just look at your life, what's working, what's not, what truly feels good, not the dopamine seeking pleasure pathways, but the true joy, time leaving, that beautiful feeling. There's a difference, right? There's a
yeah.
difference between having a conversation completely sober and feeling bliss than covering up social anxiety with 3 glasses of wine, having a conversation and having a enjoyable night. 2 totally different physiological experiences. The true one, the one that didn't require any manipulation of you out of your state, the one where
It
you were
matches.
the state, it's going to match the physiology that gets you the desired outcome.
Yeah.
And that's the brilliance. Do you have to understand it? No, it's better if you don't. That's the paradox of healing. The more you think you're going to micromanage creating a bliss state in your body, just think if somebody was standing over your bed yelling at you or coaching you into falling asleep. I don't care if they are the best sleep coach in the world. If they're standing over you trying to tell you how to sleep, they're getting in the way.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
It's
sorry, but
It makes me think so much of like these conversations I've been having around surrender and this co-creation with source and outside of just our physical health, but finding flow with life. I'm like, I explain it best by just we for me, I just believe there's something greater. God works for me, but I know that's not like a word everyone loves. But I just think, okay, I look at nature, there's divine intelligence that I can't comprehend. And I find when I surrender my life a little bit to like that greater plan, that
yeah,
it seems to unfold. And I don't need to know how that's happening. I just need to know I want that energy on my side because it seems to have
yeah,
more shit figured out than me. And it
exactly.
sounds like exactly
Well,
what, the same thing
and
with our
that's
health.
exactly true, because in an experiment that I did with myself, because I sometimes fall into that very practical, rational, like, evidence-based scientific mind, right?
Yeah.
It's really hard to break out of it sometimes because you're just like it's so embedded into who I was before that it's really hard to completely get it out of my system.
Yeah.
So one of those days I just like to do anytime I question these very powerful truths or theories or whatever, I do an experiment. And so one of the experiments I did with this, because I was like, okay, all of my plans are literally not working out. And I'm getting so frustrated that my plans aren't going as according to my plans, right?
Yeah.
Well, then I was just like, okay, so let's just think back on however much time you've had on the planet living, and we're gonna tally mark every single time that your plans have gone according to how you thought they wanted them to go, and then did they turn out the best? And then I need tally marks for how many times did you have no say at all in what happened, and it turned out the best? And then how many times did it go completely against your plans and it
Yep.
turned out to be the best? Do that experiment.
Yeah. And you're
Do
like,
that. Because then
surprisingly.
you're sitting there with your cute little tally mark list, and be brutally honest with yourself. It's not to bullshit yourself. Be brutally honest. And then when you see it, you're just like, it's this undeniable proof. Because the tally marks in my plan that I had went according to my plan. There were like cute, like three cute little sticks.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. And so then it was just like, okay, so then if we're going to be statistically significant and just go off of the stats here, what should you put more trust in? And it was actually things not going my way and things going in a way that I couldn't have even thought or put together because there was no way I could have conceived it, right?
Yeah.
And why do we fall in love with this when it comes to things like romance? Think about it. If you had a prearranged marriage, is that as romantic and delightful to you as, say, I don't know, the meet cutes, the serendipities, the accidentally meeting somebody, the love of your life in the parking lot? That's my story. I was having a random day and reading a book and ended up meeting the person that I'm currently with in a parking lot. A parking lot, right? Who I didn't go that day at that time, like to try to organize that. How would you organize that, right? And so this is the play of life, and this is part of nature knows more than you ever will. The universe, God, whatever you want to call it, infinite intelligence, whatever words you want to put on the same thing,
Mhm.
it knows the whole story. You know a perspective, right? And your perspective is valuable to the whole, but it's not the whole. And so I always like to put this on my mind and put this on even when I go back and look at how things happened in the past and I wish they would have gone this way. And but think about it right now. If your life would have gone according to your plan, would you be here now? I know as a 100% fact, I would not be the person that you would probably want to interview. I'm sure I'd have been successful and fantastic in some ways, and maybe still remotely funny, but definitely not this woman. Like if you would have told young version of me that I was going to become this, sitting in West Texas, I didn't even know holistic, like I didn't know that there's medicine, period.
Yeah.
Hospital, doctor, white coat, medicine. And you would have been like, oh,
Yeah.
you're going to be in California and you're going to be doing this wild west of alternative medicine, actually. I would be like, that's cute and funny and no freaking way. Yeah,
Isn't
that's
it so funny how it's like almost the more you know, the more you allow yourself to get curious and skeptical, like the more you release any certainty about anything you know. Like, how are people so convinced? I know there's certain foundationals of like, kindness, humanity, and stuff that I would say, probably isn't arguable, but then it's just the amount of certainty I felt when I knew so much less versus the amount of openness I feel as I continue to evolve. And it's just really refreshing for me to talk to more people who admit that they're willing to change their minds, that they don't have it all figured out. I find at this point in my life, those kind of people who act like they do know everything, it's like scary to me. Or,
think about the practicality of that. There's actually so much practicality behind that because what you should have is certainty in yourself in the wholeness and the power of yourself to have the most appropriate conversation with the world that you exist in, moment to moment, second to second, breath to breath. Anything outside of that you shouldn't be certain about because one, you're either playing with like even like the observer effect in quantum physics and like you look at an atom, it's going to change it. You look at an experiment, you're going to alter it. We have that and we're still not applying it to life.
mm-hmm.
So be an active participant in your life, but even think about when I studied extreme athletes and flow state,
Mm-hmm.
they're not certain about anything other than them being so in their body that their body reads usually these natural elements or these life-threatening circumstances with such precision and accuracy, not because they were certain about how the wave was going to go, That's
Yeah.
the difference. They're certain that they have done the preparation necessary, that they are at the top of their game, that they, in flow state, when their mind is not talking, when athletes go into flow state, there is no mind. That's why they survive the things that you would never think a human could survive. That's why they're doing these things, these feats that you couldn't even imagine a human being able to do that. If you ever doubt your physical body, go watch extreme sports. I'm talking skateboarders, snowboarders, surfers, bikers, climbers. We're not even close. Like the health community is not talking about health. We're talking about disease.
Yeah.
Health is in your extreme athletes.
Mm-hmm.
That's the truth. Because if you're not in flow state, you're really not in your body.
Yeah, and flow state in that way, but even with like a life, is that ability to just, like you said, not
Exactly.
like
And
release
you wouldn't
control.
be certain about everything that's happening in your life.
Yeah.
You would know that that would actually start hindering your capacity to navigate life effectively, appropriately, precisely, and accurately, which are all very essential things once you started thinking, right? I
Yeah.
got the cutest demonstration of this. I have a Doberman, and he is such a badass dog. He's a beast. He's a protector. He's gorgeous. He's just all the things. He's so fast, he doesn't even know what to do with it. Anytime that dog starts thinking or gets anxious because somebody's telling him to do something, he turns into a baby giraffe. It's like he falls off of things. He forgets that he knows how to swim. He turns into this like hilarious comedy cartoon character that can kind of be frustrating in real life because like literally I took him to go to a little lake and it was shallow and he's playing with his brother. His brother's a boxer and they were playing and having fun. And then we were telling the dogs that they need to come in. And so that made my dog Checo, the Doberman, anxious. So he starts thinking. And when he starts thinking, he starts sinking. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh gosh, oh, he's glitching. Oh no. And like literally his whole head is going under the water because he's not moving. And the lake bed is very muddy.
Yeah.
And he didn't like it just wasn't clicking that he needed to move. And then finally I was just like, stop calling him. Like, don't call him, he's getting anxious. And then it was like his brain cells clicked back on, and then he turns into this beast athletic
Oh,
animal again. And I'm like, that's actually nobody could explain it better than that sweet puppy just did.
yeah.
The second our brains turn on and we think we know, and we think it needs to go this way, and that this is this, and that this is this, and that our intellect is so superior to our tissues. When you're thinking, I guarantee you, you're probably sinking. And my sweet, sweet Checo Doberman puppy was the greatest teacher of that lesson. Because
Yes.
the second, and I've had that experience, one time I got swept out into the ocean in a current. I've had so many moments in my own life where it was like when my brain shut up, the genius took over, right?
That's so
And
good.
and that's what you've got to realize is yes, put in the preparation. Let's take this and let's put an actual step into our life. What does that look like living? What would an extreme athlete do? They don't not prepare and just trust that the divine has their back. That's a misuse of what you're given, right?
Yeah.
No, what do? They put in the reps, they train, they practice, they get stronger, they push themselves every single day. They show up, they train, they practice, they work on everything. They put all the pieces there, knowing that if they do everything that's required to put all the pieces there, the body will do the rest, and they just have to get out of the body's way.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like living. It's not that food doesn't matter. It's not that, the rules of digesting food don't matter. It's not that sunlight doesn't matter and EMF doesn't matter and grounding doesn't. No, it all matters.
Hmm.
But how are you going to organize it and put it into your life in a truthful way to where you get the outcome that you desire? Because at some point, you can only get so much sunlight. So how are you going to max out the benefit that you can get from natural light?
Yeah.
Also every other aspect of life, movement, communication, your emotional health, your mental well-being, your all of these other areas will actually get you more out of light. And that's your design. So there's no amount of work that you can be doing that's truthful when you get into that frenzy gathering, I need everything, I'm worried about everything, I'm anxious about everything. If I don't take everything and do everything in the right order and breathe in the right order and stay away from EMF and wear the blue light blockers and have the red light, and when you get into that,
Yeah.
you're thinking and you're sinking. And
Mm.
everything that you think you're doing good with, you're actually harming yourself because there's more of a percentage of you that is anxiety and fear and a concoction of stress hormones that's actually overriding any benefit you could have ever gotten out of the freaking light. You
Yeah.
couldn't get enough light to undo that emotional pattern.
I think so many people miss that emotional element, like the frequency of your choices and how you're applying them and integrating them into your life. Is I even talk to people, I work with sober curiosity, and it's like obviously I know physiologically alcohol's not great for you, but a lot of people will point to like blue zones, this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, yes, I think they are doing things much healthier than us overall, but also like, do they have a different culture around drinking? Do they have a different frequency with which they're having a drink? I know for me, alcohol isn't a good fit, but I'm not saying that somebody else can't have a glass of wine in a frequency of love and celebration, and maybe that mitigates the harm of the glass of wine. You know what I'm saying? And the aligned action with the surrender. I feel like people get really fixated on one or the other, like, oh, just too much, overwhelmed, like, just shut down. And surrender is not giving up, it's trusting that you've done enough when you're in alignment. And I think that is like that balance and that dance and that harmony that we like try to find, that's really hard to find. And it's also different person to person, and it takes so much accountability and willingness to like be honest with ourselves about what's working in our lives. And I've heard you mention like relationships and this and that. It's like it's not just what you're eating, it's like the off the plate health too, and your patterns of behavior and how you speak with people, how you let people speak with you, what you're accepting from others, your perspective on the world, if you have a victim mindset, like all that stuff. And I think it's human nature to like want to break it down and simplify it, but it really is like that whole picture. And I loved like really thinking about, I feel like looking at things from the frequency of the choices we're making. It really makes sense to me when it comes to health. It like adds that like quantum, like energetic element of like we can make choices that aren't the healthiest, but maybe it's in like a really high frequency. And we're going to get some fast food with our friends and we're just gonna enjoy it and have fun. Not saying that like clearly if you did that all the time, you know what I mean? But one thing I just like love all of these ways in which you kind of conceptualize it and explain it, because to me it just makes so much sense. And I feel like one thing I wanted to really ask you and get your opinion on is just, I think this level of like self accountability in terms of self healing and really inviting people to take this level of ownership of their life and their choices, and that being the differentiating factor between like truly thriving and living a blissful life, like you said. I don't know, I feel like it could be really triggering, and I'm just wondering like, have you felt lonely along your path, kind of adopting this mindset and sharing it? I feel like sometimes people see things really black and white, like even navigating just like what's going on collectively right now, and there being so much inability to like see the nuance or have conversations across differences. Like if you kind of see things in a way that is outside the box, it can feel alienating. And I feel like your perspective on health is definitely what resonates with me, but maybe could be considered outside the box. And so, what's your advice on that? Like for taking radical accountability, going against the mainstream a little bit, seeing things a little differently than others, and maybe feeling lonely in that process?
Yeah, so I definitely felt lonely in the process, but there is a overarching truth. And once you get to that, that removes that isolation. So thinking outside the box is a perspective, right? And once you orient your perspective to seek the truth, right? And so even everything that you were saying right before the question, right? All that is required for that elevated frequency that you're wanting is truth. and match your truth with the corresponding truthful action, right? And it simplifies it all the way down. You don't have to know about frequency. You don't have to worry about anything, because we even understand that your example, like with going out with your friends and having fast food, well, there's a physiological truth underpinning a truthful scene like that. So if the truth of the scene is this group of women are so freaking happy together, none of them is worried about gluten and dairy and sugar and inflammation and autoimmune. It's not even crossing their mind at this moment. They are just in the flow of having fun. They forget they have phones, they're laughing their butts off, and they have fast food. The truth of the mechanism happening simultaneously, if that's truly what's going on, they're not faking it, then
Mhm.
their digestive capacity can handle whatever they eat. That's one of the rules of digestion. That's why I always say you have to feel good, then eat. When you're trying to eat to feel good, when you're trying to get the fast food to cover up the fact that you don't feel good, it's different physiology. So that's the literal component to what you were referring to earlier. There's everything that you seek when you're seeking truth, it's going to match the most practical, rational thinking, because the truth is the truth. It's not something that you have to try hard to believe in. That's why it's so easy to be where I'm at now, because the truth is not hard to defend. It requires no defense. It
Yeah.
just is. And when I actually got into the clearing that was, I'm just operating underneath and only speaking towards truth, all of that defensiveness and everything that made me feel isolated and alone turned into just my capacity to see. And I wanted others to see what I could see, but I no longer felt that isolation
Yeah.
because I could see it all. And so what the progression of it is, yes, and I think there is some component of us having to navigate portions of our path completely alone, feeling completely alone, because I had to do that. And it was devastating. And I remember even at one point I was going to give up doing medicine altogether. My parents had came to visit. I had this big, beautiful house right on the coast. I had, the car, I had everything, and I had no people. My closest people were patients. And that there's a beauty to that, but then there was also a deep sadness to that.
Hmm.
And there was this one time when my parents came and I was like, I did it wrong. I have all of this and I have nothing.
Mm.
And I was so empty, and but then it wasn't turn back. That's where a lot of people miss it. It's not turn back, because you can't turn back with truth, because the truth will stand forever. A truth is not dependent on a perspective, right? It just happens. You can't deny it. It's that we don't want to see it.
Hmm.
But when you see it, you can't ever unsee it. I think
Hmm.
that's part of the bargain with life. But then you just have to navigate who you are, the stories you tell yourself about the journey that you're on. And that to me was part of the becoming of who I needed to become. I had to have the faith and the trust and the alliance with the truth, so much so that I would stand on my own for it.
Yeah.
And I call it spiritual integrity, because that's what kept me going, because I couldn't deny it. I couldn't go back and do the other. I couldn't profit from knowing how human psychology works and now use that to my advantage, even though I knew all of this. So my spiritual integrity was always beside me on that path. And with that, you also have everything. That's what we don't understand. Your miracles and the universe and God, and if you believe in angels or guides or whatever you call it, when you are on that path, you are so surrounded. You're just not looking, you're not trained to feel, perceive, and see what is actually with you, because the prior version of you looked towards what? I have friends, I have my family that's proud of me, I have all these things that I can get this validation from. And now your validation and your reassurance and even your directionality, nobody was pointing the way for me.
Yeah.
That's part of that loneliness feeling, is like I'm walking into a black hole. I don't know where it's going. The echoes of other voices are starting to fade away. And doubt starts creeping in, and that's where you start doubting your doubt, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, what am I? I'm being pulled now. Now that I'm no longer running away from being sick, no longer running away from being fearful of my body, no longer running away from needing man-made things to have some semblance of okay, then I've got to now understand that the new paradigm is I'm being pulled. And then the more beautiful question is, what's pulling me?
Yeah.
Right? And then you start being available to all the synchronicities of life, and synchronicities start increasing. And then you have an encounter, like life starts playing with you. And then what used to feel like isolation becomes inclusion and belonging, because you see that what you were operating in before wasn't belonging. Why? You were performing, you were trying, you were suppressing, you were modifying yourself because you were so sensitive that you could read other people's emotions, you could read their disgust, you could read their distaste. You knew the second they didn't agree with something you said, and you knew how to modify yourself in order to shape shift and make the room okay.
Yep.
But it wasn't true, right? So you never belonged, and you always knew you never belonged. And that's why you would go home, and this is my story. That's why I would go home and be like, I'm so good at reading other people that I can make myself disappear in their presence to quote unquote make them okay.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't ever belong that way. So you have to risk, just think about even what the skin has to do with cholesterol. The second it experiences sunlight, it's got to what? Have a little gap of time where there's no cholesterol occupying those slots in your skin, right? What if you slow down time completely and the skin was like, am I never going to have it again? No, but in that we're all blinking, and in that, moment in between the blink back in, it feels like nothing's there. And instead of running back, just continue. And it does feel like you're alone because you're in that blink of time where you're no longer saturated and smothered by everything that was hiding the fact that you were always that alone, right?
Yeah.
And then it transforms into something so different. The feeling of it is, I don't have to do anything to belong anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're going to taste belonging for the first time ever by risking losing everyone. And that it seems like a risky bargain, but it's worth it. And then what does that give you? That gives you everything. And then that gives you that perspective as the outlier to not judge the people that haven't jumped outside of that bell curve. You
Mm-hmm.
see your privilege. You see how you're almost like so grateful that you're like,
Yeah.
why me?
You're
Like,
so grateful that you like had the courage to like, or just
or
it
even
happened that you chose
like
to see
how
outside of
could you
it.
hear it? How did I hear the intuition that was so covered up by indoctrination?
I know.
Feel so
I
great.
feel that all the time, this like deep gratitude. I'm like, thank you fucking God that I don't know. And I'd always explain like my choice to stop drinking for me was like a big veil. But like, I am just eternally grateful for whatever the jolt of God, spirit guides, angels, Holy Spirit, I don't know what, but like, I feel like now, like you said earlier, and by the way, everything you just said, I feel like I want to cry because I'm like, that is just so resonates with me so much. And um, I'm like tearing up because it was just like literally so beautiful to listen to. But I also didn't say that I work with like highly sensitive women specifically. I'm like, as I'm crying, like, I work with highly sensitive women, can
Yeah.
you tell? But yeah, just what you were saying earlier about, like once you kind of release the shackles of like reaching for the next thing and just getting comfortable in who you are, it's like they can never get you again. And like, I just wish for everyone to find that level of liberation.
And what you're feeling right now, like I feel it, I'm sure everyone that's going to listen to this feels this, because why do we feel it? Because not too far, even in my distant path, is literally feeling like I could disappear and nobody would notice, right? That I was tolerated by the world that I lived in, but I was not adored, right? and especially highly sensitive women, that feeling of, do you see me and do I matter? Right? But we've got to realize that that's the cry inside of us, and that we answer that through living, not through learning. And we use the intellect, and it's never that you did it wrong. Because I look back and I'm like, I would never burn all the books that I read. Think about how many women came before us that had to fight to even get to touch the books that we are so fortunate to, even if it's not all true information, how cool is it to have the ability, the access to this stuff? So
Mm.
I always just look at it as like, just whisper to your own heart, it had to go the way that it went because it couldn't have gone any other way, right?
Mhm.
And then know that if you're not there to that point where you feel like the world is opening its arms to you yet, it, the arms are open. You just got to take a few more steps, right? To just keep taking, they're called those shadow steps.
Yeah.
There's even a beautiful song that I would listen to all the time by, I believe it was Hillsong United, talking that, and it is titled Shadow Step.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to find the music, you've got to find um, the things that are in the fabric of life, not your intellect. Because what you're now nourishing yourself off of is not intellect driven when you switch into this. So that's where you're no longer going to feel satiated. So like a period of our time of learning, we were full to the brim learning. Oh
Saturation.
my gosh.
Yeah.
And like I would just like the second I ran into somebody, I'm like, let me tell you what I know.
Yeah, yeah.
And you have like what do you have? You have constipation, I can help you, I can help you, I can give you
It
this
is
and
so
that.
funny. There's like a
And
proving
then
yourself
yeah,
feeling
but
that
then it's
fades
the
away.
more there's the more that you learn. And now if someone's like, hey, my brother has constipation, can you help him? I'm like, oh dear, I have so many questions. Like it's so funny how we get here,
Yeah.
right? But again, all of you is changing. So let all of you change.
Yeah.
And you're going to have Bambi legs in areas that you've never relied on before, which is not using those high capacity sensitivities to manage yourself in the presence of others and to navigate your world through who to stay away from, who likes you, who's looking at you weird, who's judging you. You've got to take your power back. You've got to flip that sensing in the right way. Your
Mhm.
north is no longer north, it's flipped. So now you're using your sensing to help navigate.
Yeah.
And it's not to help modify yourself in the presence of somebody else. That's the old way. So the same high level sensitivity employed for self in a true way, the way that you are designed to use it, is going to make you so clear, um, because you will still be able to read other people, but you'll also be able to read yourself. And that's the direction that's the most important,
Mm-hmm.
because you're no longer going to manipulate self to manage others. That's the futility of it. That's why highly sensitive women get so burned out and actually start hating their sensitivity. They start hating their superpower
Yeah.
because they're trying to get an effect in themselves through managing others, because they can isolate and understand what that person is needing, but the formula is flipped. So let's try to walk through it a little bit slower because it's so hard to explain. If we use the same power, but we give you the power, you are going to feel something in your body when somebody starts looking at you like, I don't agree with what you're saying, or you're too woo
Isn't
woo,
it just like I'm
or
like, oh, I didn't know
yeah.
everyone can't tell someone
Yeah.
doesn't like them right
So
away.
now you don't want to use it in that direction. You can identify it because it's information, but you're only taking that as information and it has nothing to do with you. But what most people are doing is they're using that power to manage and change something internal in them to get an outcome of how they want to feel. What does that mean? That you don't feel okay in the presence of somebody not approving of you. So you're trying to shape shift yourself to modify them to then feed back to you to modify your chemistry. That is an expensive and ineffective process. When what we're wanting to do is what? To feel good, to feel happy, to feel creative, to feel alive, to touch flow state in our real life. How would you use those superpowers to do that? You can identify what's going on in somebody else, but you then You can see what's going on in them, and you can maintain your sense of okayness. That somebody being in a bad mood doesn't make you be in a bad mood. And it also doesn't turn you into a circus act on what does this person need me to do, be, or say in order to alter their mood. Because what is that? You're still trying to get something indirectly instead of being like, no, I will manage myself. And then what does it turn into? Contribution. Contribution is what? I am so managed. I am so good. I can pause and I can see your distaste. I can see your disinterest or your anger or whatever it is. And I can identify that that is going on in you. And I can just be here with you. If I can provide something of true service and contribution, I will contribute. But if I have the awareness to also see where there's nothing that I could contribute to this situation that would alter anything in you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you apply wisdom with your power and you aren't leaking your energy.
Yeah.
It's a totally different way to navigate the world, because then what does that do for your sense of self and what we talked about with belonging and feeling alone? You're feeling alone because there's not many people doing it this way. But there are people that are tippy-toeing their way there. But what
Yeah.
does it look like? I take care of me. I fill my cup up with joy and love and all of the beautiful things. And I know how to co-create with other people. It's not go be an island by yourself.
Right.
It's no, it's be so full in yourself that now we can contribute. We can co-create. You're not co-creating if you're needing somebody to be happy in order for you to feel safe in your relationship. You're leeching. You're needing them to validate something in you, and you're just ping-ponging uh, those insecurities off of each other, or manipulation and control. And why are highly sensitive women the ones getting manipulated the most? Because you're consenting to it.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're still trying to use them as a mechanism on changing how you feel.
Yeah.
So you're signing the contract, you're agreeing to the terms. But if you're, just think of it, I always told myself, like, just to make it make sense in my head, a plant that is well watered doesn't need water, right? Put it on ice cream. Somebody that just had a whole pint of ice cream, if you come and try to bribe them with ice cream to get them to do something that they don't want to do, they're not going to do it. Why? They almost would gag at the thought of putting more ice cream in their body at that point. So emotionally, this is where you have to do the work. And that's why the mental work is so essential, because your mind is governing those emotions, right? It's a prediction-based model. That's why emotions is one of the things I teach the most with women.
Mm-hmm.
Emotions are not independent from your mind, and it's not independent from your past. So you're predicting based off of the past. You're not predicting off of flow state. Once you get into flow state as a woman, what does it feel like? You are not insecure. You are not jealous. You are so full of love. You see the beauty in other women. You see the genius in other people. It's like somebody ripped something off of your eyes and you're like, holy cow, this is what I was in. But the second you fall into that other way of operating, everybody's a threat. Why? Because everybody could take something from you. Everybody could make somebody change a perspective and think of you differently. And if they think of you differently, they're going to behave differently towards you. And then you're going to turn into a circus act. And then you're also going to start judging yourself because you know you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So not only do you get stabbed from the front, you get stabbed from the inside too.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not, we don't want to be highly sensitive people. We want to be highly sensitive, badass, powerful, wise women.
Yeah.
Because that's a skill. But if you
Yeah.
don't know how to use the skill, it becomes your Achilles heel, right?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Holy shit, that was really good. Mind-blowingly good. And like I think for me sometimes with my highly sensitive is I have this side where it's like I see like different perspectives that maybe aren't the most popular or the most like I this is probably again my own belief projecting, but I feel like this compulsion to like share the truth, but then I'm also feeling like very sensitive to how it's received. And so I think like finding the harmony with like letting go of how it's received and, and sharing it with compassion and not feeling like, why can't people see this? That energy is like what I've been kind of working through in my own like
You have like a
sensitivity.
literal example, so maybe we could put some
Yeah,
use
so for
around it.
me, I see like the political division feels really high and just existing on social media sometimes with that. And just as, I've been feeling sort of not, I don't feel politically apathetic at all. I still feel, I try to engage in the things that I care about. But I also get frustrated how it seems like people continuously get sucked into psyops that perpetuate division. And I'm just sort of like, can we not see the pattern recognition yet? And like, why are we letting ourselves get manipulated like this? But then I also feel, when you're not subscribing to like either side, sometimes it feels like a lonely island in the middle. And so I feel, some people might just be like, oh, I see that and I don't want to say anything, But for me, I'm like, part of me feels like I have to say something. Like, how do you continue? How are we in these
Has to
patterns
say
of
something.
like hate, just more like using my platform? And I'm not like out there sharing a lot, but I'll post things to my stories. But then I find myself getting really concerned about who it's like alienating and should I just say nothing and over analyzing,
Yeah,
you
so
know?
anytime I fall into overanalyzing, I take a step back because anytime you take an action, one thing too is like when you are aligned with truth and it's been put on your heart to speak the truth will hold its own. And it's none of it's no longer our obligation, just like this medicine is laws of how this world just works. I just use my intellect to gather information, organize it, simplify it. I didn't create it, right? So that takes away my need to defend it because it would be like me trying to defend the fact that sunlight is real, has all these benefits, and shows up every single day on this planet.
Yeah.
I don't have to defend it if people didn't know and I felt like I was put in a place where using my voice to contribute to awareness in that way, again, you put it out there, you speak the truth, we show through our experiences, through our life, through whatever, but the truth will defend itself always. That's it's the coolest thing. And when you kind of take it off of your shoulders, like think about going to the infinite, being like, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I'll defend you. The infinite's like you cute little sparkly thing.
They're like,
You don't have
we're
to. I
good.
got you. Right? So just go do what you're here to do. Like stand up for what you know you need to stand up for. And when something's put on your heart or put in your uh like in your soul to speak it, speak it. But as far as how it's received, like that's one of the things even that I talk about, like with regards to emotions, and I teach it in my classes, separation of tasks, right? It's and you might be familiar with Alfred Adler. It's another school of thought that's a little bit separated from Freud and all of that within the world of psychology. But I really liked this idea of separation of tasks because it holds true. And it's just that you need to do within your integrity and your truth, your you do what you're here to do.
Mhm.
That's your task. It is not your task to manage how it is perceived by others. It's their task. So anytime you start reaching over that line to manage something that's not yours to manage, you're no longer doing your task,
Yeah.
right? So even
Yeah.
like from like how I approach even like my social media, it's my task to share what I know and to give it for free, even if people don't understand what I'm giving, and to do things in the way that I do it, even if nobody will ever know the integrity, the everything that I've put into it. My task is to do it with the utmost integrity, the most purity, the most truth, the most power, and stay as close, like be aligned with truth
And spiritual integrity. I
and
like that.
spiritual integrity. And so then I do my side. The kicker is when you need outside approval saying that you're right to feel comfortable standing in your power.
Yeah.
Because if you need them to say that you're right, you fall susceptible when they say that you're wrong. So what I had to learn, and I learned it the hard way because social media is a very interesting little ecosystem.
Yeah.
That only my only task is to do with the utmost purity, truth, integrity what I do.
Yeah. It definitely shows.
Everything outside of that is just with the highest level of practicality, it's not my place, right? So if I were to tell somebody, you can change your life and get off of medications, and I say it with like joy and like, oh, I'm so excited about it, and I could just tell you, and they say, you're a liar and you're dangerous. I no longer take that personally because I know the truth.
Yeah.
And the truth will defend itself. And someday, I just know that, like, the way life will have it is something happens. They're going to try out all the chemotherapy, radiation, surgery, all the different things, and then they're going to need something. And when they're available for that information, just like we talked in the very beginning,
Yeah.
they're going to be like that weirdo blonde lady said something about living your life and you didn't have to have medication.
You planted the seed.
Exactly. And after you do your job wherever your plot of land has been given to manage where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
Do it with the best that you've got. Like everywhere you go, be the fullest version of you. The fullest version of you is going to be the one that's okay if people disagree with you.
Yeah.
Like the beginning of my practice, like I came in even especially like before anyone even knew who I was, but the confidence in the medicine is what carried me because I had already been doing it in practice. I didn't create social media to create a practice. I did it reverse. I had all of these really cool results that actually pushed me outside of my fear of public speaking and my fear of being seen and my, insecurities to say, hey, the world needs to know that this exists because if I would have known this back when I was 20, it would have changed my life.
Yeah.
Right? So then that's where you have to start working through. And again, I think it's part of the curriculum to holding truth, to be given the ability to see it is part of that curriculum is can you be a person with such integrity that you only use this for the good of all and that you hold your own and you do it, you are who you are even when no one's watching. Meaning,
Yeah.
if I would talk about this to my loved ones, then I'm going to talk the same way to people I don't know. And that's my only responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And the defending, you don't have to defend the truth. That's the coolest part of it.
Yeah.
And then that's going to take a big burden off of you. But the thing that I would go to, even the extreme of it, that, practitioners, anybody that's like in a leadership position that I had to like really take myself through the ringer was to really go under the microscope of also what's kind of hovering there. Because even when I was, in the role of doctor, and I would put such responsibility, such heaviness on my mind, my heart. It was just such a heavy feeling because I thought that I was responsible for the health of others.
Yeah.
And then I finally, when I got really beat down and pushed to my breaking point, one of the truths that came through in that moment was like, Cassie, you're not.
Yeah. It's like you're just a
Today,
facilitator. That's like a big
to,
kind
to,
of.
to step back and look at the truth of it, because when you take that deep sigh of relief, you're also giving up that illusion of that part of the ego that was hanging out in the role in the title of doctor.
Yeah.
So it had to
Yeah.
happen simultaneously. I had to be willing to be like, I'm not God. I cannot save anybody else's life. Woof. That's why I got into medicine. That one hurt a
Yeah.
little bit. That was one of those illusions in medicine that once I popped that, I was like, oh my gosh, that didn't feel good. Because
Yeah.
that's what I thought I was doing. And be like, no, you actually never save anyone's life. And you actually don't heal anyone either. You contribute to the conversation, you contribute to the belief, you contribute to the understanding, the tools that might be available. That person, that body, that soul, they are doing it,
Yeah.
right? You're part of a conversation always. But when you're part of a conversation, you don't say, I'm the reason this whole thing exists.
Yeah.
So the other thing that whispered into my soul in that time too was, God or universe or whatever, put me in my place. And not in this like, oh, you're nothing. You don't help anybody. You do nothing. It's not that. Think of that phrase in the most powerful, spiritual, profound way. Put me in my place. And think about where your mind goes. When something is put in its place, what
It's like a
happens?
relief.
Ease,
Yeah.
efficiency, like,
Alignment.
and no part of the structure is being damaged by,
Stress.
yeah. So then you can
Yes.
say to the infinite, everything that I've got, every gift that you've given me, everything that I've learned through experience and trials and tribulations and joys and, crazy things that have happened so unique in my life. Just not put me at the top. No, put me in my place. And then what happens when you're put in your place? You're surrounded by other people that are being put in their place. And then we become, talk about biodiversity of like what the soil needs to be the healthiest. And
Ecosystem.
exactly. So then you're not looking at your neighbor hoping that they're exactly like you. You're almost thrilled that they're not.
Yeah.
Because it's not that we all have to have the same perspective. That's impossible. So even with sharing a truth, you're not wanting everyone to have your own perspective. We're
Hmm.
sharing our perspective of what we're experiencing,
Of the
and we are
infinite.
touching truths, right? And so I want you to know that think of it differently. When you are seeking out truth, this was one of the coolest things that I found because I would talk to like engineers and I would talk to, one of my friends was an attorney and they were committed to following the truth and just wanted to know the truth of everything. And the cool thing is you're not ending up on an island when
Hmm.
you seek out the truth. It looks more like if you were to draw like a sunshine with the like rays actually touching the center, and those are all clearings. And it's a center clearing, and we're all taking all of these very unique perspective paths to a center point of truth. Because when you start having conversations with people that are outside of the world of medicine and health, there are truths that are identical in other places. Like, how does an engineer come to the same truths that I came to through studying medicine and physiology? Because the truth doesn't require perspective. That's why you're all going to start meeting in a center clearing. It's a circle, it's not an island, it's a
Yeah.
center clearing. So if you're one of the first few people to come into the circle, just start looking around because I promise you more are coming. They're
Yeah.
just going through their own very unique paths to come there too. And then every conversation, the nourishment is that they have a different perspective than you, but your perspectives, when oriented around the truth, have a unifying point.
Hmm.
That's what you're looking for. You're not looking for, you need to think and believe and speak and do and eat and drink and dress and like my perspective is driving and directing me. No. It
Yeah.
needs to be like, just like you could find a unifying point of somebody who utilizes alcohol consistently to have an outcome, that person's alcohol is somebody else's perpetual learning, is somebody else's extreme dogmatic something, right?
Yeah. Ideology of
There's a
it.
unifying point even to what we call pathology.
Right.
And
Totally.
so you're not wanting anyone, like, first of all, it's impossible. As much as we try to shapeshift and pretend, no two people are ever the same. Our perspectives aren't the same. We don't even see shades of color the same or hear, like, we're so freaking unique, but we're pretending like we're not.
Yeah.
So it's never that you need to deliver something to encompass you can't. But when you align your message with truth, it has to come from what? Your perspective of it,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
you try to deliver, or what I've tried to do is deliver truth as close to the source as my words could possibly get it.
Hmm.
That's your job. How creative can you be? Because even this conversation seems clear in my brain, but it's so hard to say these things with language, right? Because even if I say a word and I say love or I say, God, even, It means something for you, something for me,
Yeah.
something from him, something. So even when I say something, it's not even conveying effectively and appropriately because everyone has a different perspective of words, experiences, emotions, events. So that's where it's not our job to be like this universal, digestible thing. Our job is to say, hey, over here from the place of the planet I've been planted in and all the things I've gone through and everything, like all the experiments I've done, this is the evidence I get to bring to the table, right? And I've done some experiments, let me tell
I've done some
you.
shit.
And then you also, when you realize that, you value the perspective of others. The most powerful relationship I've ever had is the one I'm currently in. I've had beautiful relationships, not all of them, but most of them. And my closest romantic relationship, our primary language is different. And it would lead you to believe that we would miscommunicate the most often. But the truth and the beauty and the lesson that I've learned in this is because we don't assume that we know what the other one means, we always have this pause in between of what did you mean by that?
Yeah.
And because of our assumption that we aren't understanding the other person or the word that was chosen because we have two different primary languages, it's actually making our communication far more effective because it's like, oh, when
Yeah.
he said home, I think this, he actually was trying to say a house, right? Two
Yeah.
totally different stories. I'm all in emotional, warm and cozy fireplaces, sentimentality, and he's like the structure, right?
Like, no, just the physical structure.
Like just actually the actual frame.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
okay,
really,
that story changed. That story changed quite a bit, right?
yeah.
So that's the truth. Like, if we could actually know that because of perception, because of individuality, because of what true authenticity actually is, that we're so far away from even using appropriately, that's the truth. Like, with every word that we said here, the most appropriate next thing is like, okay, what do you mean by this?
Yeah.
Right? And so
It's,
when you engage in conversations like this, you're never on guard because you're trying to understand instead of demanding that you're understood.
yeah.
There's a
I
difference.
I know. I feel like, well, first of all, that's really funny that you said that because that's one thing I've been talking with my husband about is like, is sometimes he's like, "Oh, I feel like you could should just be able to like understand where I'm at." And I'm like, "Yeah, but that's I don't know if that's a fair expectation to have. Like, it's our responsibility to like communicate where we're at too." And but I do have to end here soon, but I have like I feel like I could pick your brain for like 10 hours and also just listen to you forever because I'm like, "Oh my God, this is just resonating for me so much." And I know that all of our interpretations of like words and conversations like this are different, but it just really resonates with me, everything you're saying. And I knew that it would just based on having followed you. And it feels like I feel like I just had the best therapy session, like, of all time. I'm like, do I have to pay you for this podcast appearance?
We pay it forward. We let hopefully
Yeah.
that feeling sunk into somebody else because that's the other cool thing too. When something is created in integrity and pureness, it's going to have impact elsewhere.
Yeah.
Right? Even though it's not going to be a conversation for everybody, but it's going to be a conversation for somebody, right?
Yeah.
It was
There's
just
just everything about it totally resonates with where I'm at in my own path and just even some of the things we're talking about, finding how to share the truth from a space of like not worrying how it lands or not with the intention. I never have the intention of trying to change people's minds. I think that there's that like feeling of wanting to be seen without being judged, like that sort of can't we all share perspectives and maybe it's not 100% our truth, but still be open to like different ways of thinking. Um, and so it's just like really refreshing to speak with people like you who are able to so articulately like explain how my soul feels. I just feel so like a breath of fresh air, like a big sigh of relief after speaking with you. And
keep that feeling going in the rest of
yeah, I'm gonna carry that with me. And I also, before we end, okay, two things. will you share where people can find you? And also, we were talking a lot about systems and all this and that. Who is they, in your opinion?
Who is they? Oof. It depends on which they we're talking about, like the they that's in control.
Yes.
I
Who
think
is
that's
they?
who's they.
When we're
I
like,
think
they want us to do this, they want. Who is they?
I
This
think they is a distraction from trying to understand us.
consciousness
Well, I know there's
distraction.
some very like literal humans and structures and agencies and all of those things, but again, I think it's a dangling carrot, right?
Yeah.
The
Oh, you
whole
think the holes are like more
Oh
distractions
yeah,
from
because
the.
if you spent your whole life trying to do the detective work to figure out and isolate and understand and identify the they,
You
what are you
missed the
going to miss out?
bliss.
You're going to miss your whole entire life actually, and you're going to
Yeah.
spend your life in perpetual fear, anxiety, concern, the mental strain of being a CIA agent that's untrained, right? Or trained. And that's where it becomes, if anything, talk about the game more. You're
Yeah.
not going to win the game, right?
Yep.
Win the game when you start understanding you're in the game.
Yep.
And just again, do an experiment. Have one day where you are the top-notch CIA agent, go do all your detective work. How do you feel at the end of that day? Okay. Then have another day where you are going to just go into it's
That.
not you can't go into blissful ignorance because we're at this point most of us know far too much.
Yeah.
But to actively employ your intelligence of I don't want to think about that. There's nothing that I can do. Like if there is an action you need to take for the good of others, you take it and then you move on and then you move on and then you move on and
Yeah.
live a day in truth and integrity that way. It's not to turn a blind eye or to act like all of it's not happening. That's also not intelligent. But it's saying with where you're planted, with where you're at, there is so much that needs to be done in our households and in our families. And then we're so far away from even getting into the communities because so many households are war zones.
Yep.
And so, again, we've got to start where impact can actually be made because if the family unit wasn't manipulating and gaslighting each other, and, we've got to create integrity where integrity actually matters before we could ever, because, like, what would we do if we isolated the they
Yeah.
with our
We're
scattered?
fractured ourselves.
Yeah, we're so scattered and fractured and not unified, and this person's fighting this, and it's so chaotic and it's perfectly designed. It's
Yeah.
perfectly designed to keep you not working where work matters and not connected where the connection matters and not giving your attention. Your attention is the goal, right? And how do you capture somebody's attention? You either hide something or you pretend like you're hiding it. But most of the time, hiding something in plain sight will torture somebody more than actually having something truly overtly hidden, right? So for me, I just like every single day, I'm like, I would go 1,000 different directions with my attention and with like again, if you had just give it 2 years, 2 years of life left, what good would you do? Where would you spend your time, your energy, your intellect? Where is the best use of your goodness, your resources, your generosity?
Yeah.
And really then put it on a level where we're doing something. And sometimes the most true, most beneficial actions are can we create relationships that have such high integrity that
Mm-hmm.
our families begin to heal before
Yes.
we go chase down the elusive they, right? Because
They.
what if we're the they
Yeah.
that we're just behaving in such a way that we're keeping the machine going
Right. That's what I
and
always say
think
too.
that
Like
we're
this.
fighting
Yeah,
it?
the systems are a reflection of the consciousness creating it, and so maybe that's why healing starts with us, you know? So, okay, I love that answer. Very empowering. And I had to end there. And then where can everyone find you?
Yeah, so my website is gritnaturalmedicine.com. I keep things updated on that. And then I'm on social media like YouTube and Instagram primarily. And it's just Dr. Cassie Wuthrich. And those are the primary places, and I have master classes where I actually teach the like simple, actual practical stuff. Social media sometimes can be more of the poetic side of things because I love talking about that. The practical is essential and needed, but it's not as enticing and like it
Yeah.
touches it, so it's fun. But I just fall in love with more of the
Yeah.
poetic side of being
I
human.
love
So
it.
that's where you can find me, and yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. I love all my podcast guests, but I have to say, this is like really one that stands out in my brain right now.
I'm
Like,
so
this was
glad.
amazing. And thank you so much for taking the time to share your wisdom with us. It really is just so beautiful, your lens on reality and the world. And it's so cool. It literally just feels like channeled messages, everything you say. So thank you so much for being here. And thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll
Have
see
a
you next
beautiful rest of
time.
your day wherever you're at.
Yes, bye.